Stormhaven gleamed in the Pacific's embrace, a man-made paradise for the world's elite. Its artificial peak, soaring 800 meters, defied the ocean's might, a testament to wealth's ambition. Billionaires toasted under crystal domes, their laughter drowning the sea's restless hum. Jade Turner, a maintenance worker with a soldier's past, moved unseen among them. Her scarred hands, once steady in battle, now fixed wires in the shadows. At dawn, she stood alone by the shore, watching the tide flee. Coral bared, fish gasping, gulls screaming in frantic spirals. The air grew heavy, the horizon tilting under a silent threat. Jade's pulse quickened. She knew the signs. A tsunami was coming, vast and merciless. The guests, blind to the danger, danced on, their world of luxury untouched by the ocean's warning. Jade gripped her toolkit, her eyes fixed on the vanishing sea. She was no stranger to chaos, but this was different. Stormhaven was a fortress, yet it would crumble. One woman, forgotten by the elite, held its fate. By nightfall, her choice would decide who lived and who the sea would claim. Stormhaven rose from the Pacific like a vision. Its central peak, a synthetic giant over 800 meters tall, soaring above sculpted gardens and shimmering pools. The island was a sanctuary for the world's wealthiest. The billionaire who dreamed Stormhaven into existence moved among his guests, his smile polished but sharp, like a blade hidden in silk. His vision was flawless. An island untouchable by storm or sea, a monument to human triumph. Jade Turner, clad in a maintenance uniform, was invisible to the elite. Her hands, scarred from battles fought in distant lands, now tightened bolts and cleaned circuits. Once a special forces operative, she had traded gunfire for anonymity, her past locked behind a new name. The guests, draped in diamonds, spoke of stocks and scandals, their voices a constant hum. Jade moved through them, her eyes scanning the horizon for signs others missed. She noticed the air's weight, the way palms bent too sharply in the breeze. As dusk painted the sky in shades of blood and amber, she climbed a service ladder to a quiet overlook, far from the gala's glow. The sea stretched before her, its surface unnaturally still, like a predator holding its breath. Jade's instincts, honed in war zones, stirred. She'd seen this calm before, on coasts where silence preceded catastrophe. Below, the party pulsed, chandeliers casting prisms across marble floors. Waiters glided with trays of champagne, and laughter drowned the ocean's faint growl. Jade's fingers brushed the toolkit at her side, its weight a familiar comfort. She'd come to Stormhaven to escape her past, not to fight again. But the island felt alive, its pulse unsteady. Vincent Hale's voice carried from the main pavilion, welcoming his guests with promises of invincibility. Stormhaven is eternal, he declared, and the crowd cheered. Jade's lips tightened. She'd heard boasts like that before, from generals, from leaders, from men who thought they could outwit fate. The sea didn't care for their wealth or their walls. She descended the ladder, her boots soft on the rungs, and slipped into a service corridor. The island's underbelly was her domain, a maze of pipes and wires where she worked unseen. There, in the shadows, she'd found traces of Stormhaven's past, a naval base from the 1970s, its bones repurposed for luxury. Dusty records hinted at forgotten systems, built for survival, not show. Jade's mind turned over the possibilities. If danger came, the gala's glitter would mean nothing. She paused by a viewport, the ocean's surface glinting below. It was too quiet, too flat, like a canvas stretched tight before a tear. Her breath steadied, her soldier's instincts waking fully. The gala's music swelled, a violin's wail cutting through the night. Guests danced, oblivious, their world a bubble of light and excess. Jade turned away, her steps quickening toward the maintenance hub. She didn't know what was coming, but she felt its approach, a pressure in her chest, a whisper in the wind. Stormhaven was a dream, but dreams could break. And when they did, Jade would be ready. Her hands steady, her heart set against the storm. The dawn broke over Stormhaven with an unnatural hush, the air heavy as if holding its breath. Jade Turner stood at the island's edge, her boots sinking into the damp sand where the tide should have been. The sea had fled, leaving a jagged expanse of coral and stranded fish, their scales glinting like shattered glass. Gulls wheeled overhead, their cries sharp and frantic, fleeing inland in chaotic spirals. Jade's pulse quickened, her soldiers' instincts screaming what her eyes confirmed. A tsunami was coming. Its scale vast, its arrival imminent. She'd seen this before, on distant shores, in moments when nature turned predator. Her scarred hands tightened on her toolkit, the weight grounding her as she scanned the horizon. The water's retreat was no glitch. It was a warning, written in the ocean's sudden absence. She sprinted toward the resort's control hub, her breath steady despite the dread coiling in her chest. The hub buzzed with activity, screens glowing with weather data that lied in serene blues and greens. Jade pushed through the glass doors, her voice cutting through the hum of air conditioning. The tide's gone. Birds are fleeing. A tsunami's coming, now. The staff, in crisp uniforms, exchanged glances. Vincent Hale's deputy, a man with a clipboard and a practiced sneer, dismissed her. Our sensors are clear, Miss Turner. No need for panic. He gestured to a monitor showing calm seas, his tone final. The gala was hours away, and Stormhaven's image as an unbreakable haven could not falter. Jade's jaw tightened. She'd faced skepticism before, commanders who ignored her intel, only to regret it when blood spilled. The head of operations, a woman with a tight smile, echoed the deputy. We can't disrupt the event over a hunch. Guests expect perfection. Jade's warning was met with raised brows, her urgency a nuisance to their polished routine. She saw the truth in their eyes. They feared Vincent Hale's wrath more than the sea. The gala's preparations continued. Servers polished silver, florists arranged lilies, and music drifted from the pavilion. Jade stepped back, her mind racing. They wouldn't act, but she would. Slipping through a service door, she descended into the island's underbelly, a labyrinth of concrete and steel. Stormhaven's past as a naval outpost lingered here, in rusted pipes and faded signs. During routine repairs, Jade had found a storeroom, its shelves heavy with forgotten blueprints. Her flashlight cut through the gloom, illuminating yellowed pages that detailed a buoyant tower system, relics of a time when survival trumped luxury. If the staff wouldn't listen, she'd find another way. The sea's growl was faint but growing, a low rumble that vibrated through the walls. She knelt beside a crate, pulling out schematics brittle with age. The system was ingenious. Massive pillars that could float, designed to carry people to safety during cataclysms. Abandoned when the island became a resort, it was still there, hidden beneath the glitz. Jade's fingers traced the lines, mapping the locations of manual controls. The gala's laughter echoed above, a world away. Her radio crackled with the staff's chatter, still debating decor. Time was slipping away, the sea's patience thinning. Jade stood, her resolve ironclad. She'd faced worse odds in war zones. The ocean was coming, and she'd meet it head-on, alone if she had to. The control hub of Stormhaven thrummed with artificial calm, its screens casting a sterile glow over polished consoles. Jade Turner stood at the room's edge, her maintenance uniform a stark contrast to the staff's crisp blazers. She repeated her warning, voice steady but urgent. The sea's retreating. A tsunami's coming. We need to evacuate now. The head of operations, Ms. Carver, barely looked up from her tablet. Our systems show nothing, Miss Turner. Stormhaven is built for this. Her tone was clipped, her eyes fixed on the gala schedule. Vincent Hale's deputy, a wiry man named Kessler, waved a hand. False alarms ruin reputations. The gala goes on. Jade's fists clenched. She'd seen this before. Bureaucrats dismissing danger to save face, only to count bodies later. The hub's monitors displayed tranquil seas, but Jade trusted her instincts over their tech. Outside, the air was thick, the horizon unnaturally sharp. She tried again, pointing to the birdless sky, the exposed reef. Kessler scoffed. Your maintenance, not meteorology. The staff resumed their tasks, coordinating caterers and security for the evening's event. Jade's warning hung in the air, ignored, as chandeliers sparkled above and guests sipped cocktails below. Frustration burned in her chest, but she knew arguing was futile. They were tethered to Hale's vision of an unsinkable paradise. She slipped through a service door, her boots echoing in the concrete stairwell. The island's underbelly was her refuge, a maze of rusted pipes and flickering lights where she could think. Stormhaven's past as a naval base lingered in these depths, its military roots buried under luxury. During a routine repair weeks ago, Jade had stumbled on a locked storeroom. Its contents a time capsule of Cold War engineering. She navigated the dim corridors, her flashlight cutting through shadows. The storeroom's door creaked as she forced it open, revealing shelves of dusty files and blueprints. Her fingers brushed a folder labeled Emergency Protocols, its pages brittle but intact. The schematics detailed a buoyant tower system, massive pillars designed to detach and float, carrying personnel to safety during disasters. Built in the 1970s, it was abandoned when the island became a resort, its controls hidden in the lower levels. Jade's pulse steadied as she studied the plans, memorizing the locations of 6 manual activation points. The system was old, but it could work. Above, the gala's music swelled, violins weaving through the night. The guests danced, oblivious to the sea's growing hum. Jade folded the blueprint, tucking it into her jacket. She moved to the first control point, a rusted panel in a flooded maintenance shaft. The air smelled of salt and iron, the walls vibrating with the ocean's distant growl. Her radio crackled, staff arguing over floral arrangements, not evacuation. Jade ignored them. She'd fought in wars where hesitation meant death. She wouldn't let bureaucracy doom these people. The panel's cover groaned as she pried it open, revealing wires stiff with age. Her hands moved with precision, reconnecting circuits by memory. The sea's rumble grew louder. A beast stirring in the deep. Jade stepped back, wiping sweat from her brow. The panel hummed faintly, a sign of life. 5 more to go. She turned, her flashlight slicing the dark. The gala's lights glittered above, but down here, she was alone with the island's secrets. Time was running out, and the sea waited for no one. Jade tightened her grip on her toolkit and pressed forward, her mission clear. The storeroom's air was thick with dust and the tang of rusted metal. Jade Turner knelt beside a sagging shelf, her flashlight illuminating faded blueprints of Stormhaven's past. The buoyant tower system, a relic of the island's naval days, was a marvel of 1970s engineering. 6 massive pillars designed to detach and float, carrying people to safety when storms struck. Abandoned when the island became a billionaire's playground. The system lay dormant, its controls scattered across the lower levels. Jade's fingers traced the schematics, her soldier's mind mapping each point. The gala's music thrummed faintly above, a world oblivious to the sea's growing growl. Her radio buzzed with staff chatter, still debating decor, not disaster. Time was slipping away. She moved to the first control point, a rusted panel in a damp maintenance shaft. The air was heavy, the walls slick with condensation. The panel's cover groaned as she pried it open, revealing a tangle of wires and a lever stiff with disuse. Jade's hands, scarred from battles long past, worked with precision, reconnecting circuits by memory. Sparks flared, and a low hum vibrated through the floor, 1 tower alive. 5 remained. The sea's rumble was audible now, a deep pulse that set her nerves on edge. She slung her toolkit over her shoulder and pressed deeper into the island's underbelly. The corridors were a labyrinth, their concrete walls etched with faded naval insignia. Jade navigated by instinct, her flashlight cutting through the gloom. The second control point was half submerged, its panel corroded by years of neglect. She waded in, the cold water biting her legs, and forced the lever down. A groan echoed as the tower stirred, its mechanisms grinding back to life. Her breath was steady, but her muscles burned. Above, the gala's laughter carried. Guests sipping champagne under crystal domes. Jade's jaw tightened. They didn't know how close death loomed. The third point was harder to reach, tucked behind a collapsed pipe. Jade crawled through a narrow duct, her shoulders scraping the walls. The air was stifling, thick with the scent of oil and salt. She found the panel, its dials caked with grime. Her fingers worked fast, splicing wires and testing connections. A faint hum rewarded her efforts, the third tower waking. The sea's roar grew louder, vibrating through the island's core. Jade's radio crackled. Kessler, Hale's deputy, barking about security for the server room. No mention of evacuation. She shut it off. The fourth point was in a flooded chamber, the water knee-deep and rising. Jade dove under, her flashlight clenched in her teeth, and wrestled the lever free. The tower shuddered, its hum a faint pulse against the chaos. 2 left. Her clothes clung to her skin, her lungs tight from the humid air. The gala's violins wailed above, a cruel contrast to the ocean's mounting fury. Jade pushed on, her training keeping her focused. She'd faced worse: deserts, jungles, firefights. But this was a different enemy, vast and unstoppable. The 5th point was a rusted hatch in a crumbling tunnel. Jade forced it open, her arms straining. The panel sparked as she activated it, the tower's hum joining the others. 1 more. The walls shook, the sea's voice now a roar. Jade stood, her silhouette small against the island's decay. She was alone, but that was nothing new. The final tower waited, and with it, a chance to save those who didn't even know her name. The ground trembled as the first wave struck Stormhaven. A wall of water tearing through the island's edge. Glass shattered in the towers above, and screams pierced the morning's hush. Jade Turner was halfway to the 5th buoyant tower when the floods surged into the lower corridors, a cold, frothing beast. The air turned thick with salt and panic. The walls groaning under the sea's weight. She waded through knee-deep water, her flashlight's beam slicing the murk. The heliport, Stormhaven's lifeline, was gone, submerged under churning foam. The gala's lights flickered, then died, plunging the resort into shadow. Jade's boots slipped on the slick floor, but her soldier's instincts kept her moving, her toolkit slung tight across her back. Above, the elites stumbled through the chaos, their silk gowns sodden, their faces pale with shock. The lower districts, where workers like Jade lived, bore the brunt, water-swallowing homes. Corridors collapsing. She reached the 5th control point, its panel half submerged in a flooded chamber. Bracing against the current, she forced the lever down, her muscles straining as the tower groaned to life. A hum vibrated through the walls, faint but steady. Jade exhaled, her breath ragged. 1 tower left. Shouts echoed from the upper levels. Guests had seen her, drawn by the hum of the towers. A small group, drenched and desperate, followed her through the flooding halls. "Stay with the tower," she barked, pointing to the glowing beacon of the 4th pillar, now rising above the water. They obeyed, their eyes wide with fear. Jade didn't pause. The final control point was deeper in the island's core, and the sea was gaining. Her radio crackled with panic, staff pleading for orders, but no one came to help. The gala's violins were silent now, replaced by the ocean's roar. The water reached her waist as she pushed through a crumbling tunnel. The air was heavy, the walls vibrating with the sea's fury. Jade's mind flashed to war zones, sand and gunfire replaced by water and steel. She'd survived those, she'd survived this. The 5th tower's hum gave her focus, a lifeline in the dark. She climbed a rusted ladder, her hands slick with salt, and reached a platform overlooking the lower districts. The sea had claimed them, debris floating like ghosts. The elite's paradise was unraveling, its steel bones no match for the ocean's might. Jade found the next panel, its wires sparking in the damp. She worked fast, her fingers steady despite the cold creeping into her bones. The lever stuck, rusted solid. She slammed her shoulder against it, pain flaring but ignored. The tower shuddered, its hum joining the others. 5 down. The final point was near, but the water was rising faster, lapping at her chest. Her flashlight flickered, the beam weak. She gritted her teeth, pushing forward. The sea didn't care about her past or her scars. It was coming for everyone. Above, the guests clung to railings, their wealth useless against the flood. Jade's radio buzzed with Kessler's voice. Hale's deputy, still obsessed with securing the server room. No mention of saving lives. She shut it off, her focus narrowing to the task. The island was breaking, but the towers were rising, carrying hope she'd kindled alone. The final control waited, and with it, a chance to defy the sea. Jade moved on, her silhouette a flicker in the dark, the ocean's growl her only companion. Water swirled around Jade Turner's waist, cold and relentless, as she pushed through Stormhaven's flooded corridors. The air was thick with salt and the acrid tang of sparking wires. She reached the 5th buoyant tower's control point, a rusted panel in a crumbling chamber. Her flashlight flickered, casting jagged shadows on the concrete walls. The sea's roar was deafening now, a primal growl shaking the island's bones. Jade's muscles burned, her breath sharp, but her training kept her steady. Years of war had taught her to move through chaos. She dove under the water, her fingers prying at the lever, stiff with decades of neglect. It gave way with a groan, and the tower hummed, its mechanisms stirring. 5 down, 1 to go. She surfaced, gasping, her clothes heavy with seawater. The corridors were a maze of rusted pipes and naval relics, Stormhaven's military past buried beneath its glossy facade. Her mind flickered to battlefields, sand and blood now replaced by water and steel. The 6th control point was deeper, in a chamber near the island's core. Jade waded forward, the current fighting her every step. The gala's music was gone, replaced by screams echoing from above. Guests in sodden finery stumbled through the upper levels, their world of luxury dissolving into panic. The 5th tower's hum vibrated through the walls, a faint pulse against the sea's fury. Jade clung to it, a lifeline in the dark. She climbed a buckled ladder, her boots slipping on wet rungs, and entered a tunnel where the air was stifling, heavy with oil and damp. The panel was there, half submerged, its dials crusted with grime. She knelt, her hands steady despite the cold seeping into her bones. Wires sparked as she reconnected them, her soldier's precision cutting through the chaos. The lever groaned, then clicked. The tower shuddered, its hum joining the others. Jade exhaled, her breath a cloud in the chilly air. Above, the island was unraveling. Towers tilted, walkways collapsed, and the sea claimed the lower districts. Jade's radio crackled, Vincent Hale's voice, calm and commanding, ordering staff to secure the server room, not the people. Her jaw tightened. She'd overheard enough during her maintenance shifts to know Hale's empire was built on secrets, deals hidden in digital vaults, worth more to him than lives. The final tower was her mission now, its control point a beacon in the dark. She pushed through the flooded tunnel, the water chest high, her flashlight barely piercing the murk. Her body ached, but her resolve was iron. Flashbacks of war surged, deserts, jungles, the weight of lives in her hands. This was no different. The sea was her enemy now, vast and unyielding, but she'd faced worse. The 6th tower's hum would mean salvation for dozens, maybe more. She reached a rusted hatch, forcing it open with a grunt. The chamber beyond was a relic, its walls etched with faded naval codes. The panel waited, its lever gleaming faintly in her light. She paused, the sea's roar filling her ears. Jade's hands moved, splicing wires, testing connections. The panel sparked, then hummed. She gripped the lever, her shoulders screaming as she forced it down. The tower woke, its vibrations a pulse of hope. The island shook, the sea's wrath closing in. Jade stood, her silhouette small against the chaos. The gala's guests were fleeing, but she was rooted, her mission unfinished. The final tower was done, but the fight wasn't over. She turned, ready for what came next, the ocean's growl her only guide. Vincent Hale stood in Stormhaven's server room, his face bathed in the cold glow of monitors. Jade Turner, drenched and battered, overheard his orders through a stolen earpiece. Secure the data. No evacuation until it's safe. His voice was steady, unshaken by the island's tremors or the sea's roar. Jade's blood ran cold. She'd pieced together whispers during her maintenance shifts. Hale's empire was built on illegal deals, billions hidden in digital vaults. He'd let Stormhaven sink to erase those secrets, sacrificing lives for his legacy. The buoyant towers were active, 5 humming with life, but Hale's priorities were clear, data over people. Jade's mission shifted. The sea was no longer her only enemy. She slipped through the flooded corridors, her boots splashing in chest-high water. The island groaned, its steel frame buckling under the first wave's aftermath. Her flashlight flickered, but her soldier's instincts guided her toward the final tower. Hale's guards patrolled the upper levels, their radios buzzing with his commands to lock down the docks, trapping everyone. Jade's jaw tightened. She'd saved lives in worse odds, deserts, jungles, ambushes, but this was a new kind of war, one waged against a man's greed. The 6th control point was close, hidden in a crumbling chamber. Jade waded through the murk, her breath sharp in the stifling air. The panel was submerged, its lever rusted but intact. She dove under, her lungs burning as she forced it free. The tower hummed, its vibrations a pulse of hope against the chaos. Surfacing, she gasped, her body screaming from the effort. The earpiece crackled again, Hale ordering his men to seal the server room, his voice calm as if the island weren't drowning. Jade's fingers twitched. She'd faced tyrants before, but none so callous. She moved toward the docks, where the towers would launch. Hale's guards were there, armed and vigilant, their silhouettes stark against the flickering emergency lights. Jade crouched in the shadows, her training taking over. She'd disarmed men in worse conditions, silent, swift, unseen. The first guard fell with a quick strike to the neck, his radio clattering to the floor. The second turned too late. Jade's elbow sent him sprawling. She reached the dock's controls. A rusted panel slick with seawater. Her fingers flew, overriding Hale's lockdown. The gates creaked, and the towers began to drift, carrying terrified guests toward the open sea. Above, the island was collapsing, towers tilting, walkways snapping like twigs. Jade's radio buzzed with panic, but Hale's voice cut through, still fixated on his data. She shut it off, her focus narrowing. The final tower's control room was near, its hum a beacon in the dark. She climbed a buckled staircase, her legs heavy but her resolve unbroken. The sea's roar was deafening, a second wave building in the distance. Jade knew the odds. She'd activated the towers, given the guests a chance. But Hale's greed was a chain, binding them to the sinking island. She reached the control room, its door jammed by debris. With a grunt, she forced it open, water pouring in behind her. The panel waited, its lever gleaming faintly. Jade paused, her breath steady despite the chaos. Hale's empire was crumbling, but his secrets were his anchor. She'd free the others, even if it meant facing him. The sea was coming, and so was she. Her hands gripped the lever, ready to finish what she'd started. The docks of Stormhaven were a fortress, their steel gates locked under Vincent Hale's orders. Jade Turner moved through the shadows, her soaked uniform clinging to her skin as water lapped at her thighs. Hale's guards patrolled the platform, their radios crackling with commands to secure the billionaire's secrets, not the lives of the guests. Jade's soldiers' instincts took over. Years of covert missions had taught her to become a ghost. The first guard never saw her. A swift strike to his temple sent him crumpling, his rifle splashing into the flood. The second turned, but Jade was faster, disarming him with a twist of his wrist. His radio fell silent as she dragged him behind a crate. The dock's control panel was a rusted relic, its surface slick with seawater. Jade's fingers, steady despite the cold, worked the override. Bypassing Hale's lockdown, the gates groaned open, and the buoyant towers, 5 humming with life, began to drift free, carrying terrified guests toward the open sea. Their faces, pale and streaked with mascara, pressed against the tower windows, eyes wide with hope and fear. Jade didn't pause to watch. The final tower's control room was her goal, and time was a blade at her throat. The island shuddered, its steel frame buckling as the sea's roar grew louder. Jade climbed a twisted staircase, her boots slipping on wet metal. Hale's men were closing in, their shouts echoing through the flooded corridors. She reached the control room, its door half submerged. With a grunt, she forced it open, water surging past her knees. The panel inside was intact, its lever gleaming faintly in her flashlight's beam. She barred the door with a broken pipe, buying seconds. The guards' boots splashed closer, their radios buzzing with Hale's voice, still obsessed with his data. Jade's jaw clenched. She was fighting a man, not just the sea. The lever was stiff, its gears gummed with age. Jade threw her weight against it, her shoulders screaming as metal grated. The tower hummed, a low pulse that vibrated through the floor. The final tower was alive, ready to float. Outside, the docks trembled as the towers detached, bobbing in the churning sea. Jade's breath was ragged, her body aching from the fight through water and steel. She'd given the guests a chance. But the island was crumbling, and Hale's greed was a weight dragging it down. The guards pounded on the door, their voices sharp with urgency. Jade ignored them, her focus on the panel's override switch. She flipped it, ensuring the towers would drift clear of the island's collapse. The sea's roar was deafening now, a second wave building in the distance, its shadow looming over the horizon. Jade knew she might not make it out. Her radio crackled. Hale's deputy, Kessler, barking orders to secure the server room. No mention of the people she'd saved. She shut it off, her hands steady despite the chaos. The door buckled under the guard's blows, but Jade was done. The towers were free, carrying dozens to safety. She climbed to a maintenance hatch, her muscles burning as she forced it open. The air outside was thick with salt, the sea's fury shaking the island's core. Jade stood, her silhouette small against the rising wave. She'd fought nature and man, and won, for now. The final battle waited, but she was ready, her resolve a fire the sea couldn't quench. The horizon vanished as the second wave rose, a towering wall of water dwarfing the first. It surged toward Stormhaven, tearing steel and glass like paper. Jade Turner stood in the control room, her hands steady on the final lever, its hum confirming the last buoyant tower's activation. The island shuddered, its foundations crumbling as the sea reclaimed its due. Water poured through the cracked door, cold and unyielding, lapping at her thighs. The towers were free, bobbing in the distance, their lights faint against the storm's fury. Jade had given dozens a chance, guests, workers, lives she'd never know. Her breath was steady, her soldiers' resolve unbroken despite the chaos. She climbed through a maintenance hatch, emerging onto the control hub's roof. The island was a ruin below, towers tilted. Walkways snapped, the gala's opulence drowned in foam. The second wave loomed, a mountain of churning white, its roar deafening. Jade's radio crackled with Vincent Hale's voice, now frantic. Trapped in the server room with his precious data. He'd stayed to protect his secrets, his empire of illegal deals worth more to him than lives. Jade ignored him. But this was different. The sea didn't negotiate. Her flashlight flickered out, useless against the dark. The tower's hum was her only comfort, a faint pulse in the chaos. She'd activated them all, defying Hale's greed and the staff's inaction. The wave hit, a colossal force that shook the hub to its core. Windows shattered, and water surged over the roof, cold and relentless. Jade braced herself, her boots slipping on the slick surface. The towers bobbed in the distance, carrying survivors, her work complete. Hale's voice cut through the earpiece again, pleading for rescue. She ripped it out, letting it fall into the flood. He'd made his choice, she'd made hers. The sea roared, a beast unleashed, tearing through the island's steel heart. Jade pulled the final override, a manual switch to ensure the tower's drift. The hub groaned, its structure buckling. She didn't flinch. Her life had been a series of battles, some won, some lost, but this one was hers. The wave crested, a white curtain swallowing the horizon. She stood firm, eyes fixed on the distant towers, their lights a flicker of hope. The water came, a towering force that swept over the roof. Jade's figure was a shadow against the foam, unyielding until the end. The survivors on the towers would never know her name. They'd seen her, a lone figure on the hub, her stance defiant as the sea claimed her. The wave passed, leaving silence in its wake. Stormhaven was gone, its ruins sinking into the deep. Jade had fought both man and nature, her sacrifice a ripple in the chaos. The towers drifted on, carrying lives she'd saved. Her mission was complete, but her story wasn't. Somewhere, in the ocean's depths, her strength lingered, a whisper of courage, unseen but eternal, etched in the sea's unyielding heart. From the buoyant towers, survivors watched in silence, their breaths caught in the salt-soaked air. Jade Turner stood atop the control hub's roof, a lone figure framed against the dawn's faint glow. The second wave, a monstrous wall of water, had swallowed Stormhaven, its steel and glass no match for the sea's wrath. The towers bobbed in the distance, carrying dozens to safety, lives Jade had saved with her relentless push through flooded corridors and rusted controls. Her silhouette was small but unyielding, her uniform tattered, her stance defiant as the wave's white crest loomed. The survivors clung to railings, their faces etched with shock, unable to look away. The water hit, a colossal force that swept over the hub, foam and debris churning in its wake. Jade was there, then gone, swallowed by the sea's embrace. The towers rocked, their hum a faint pulse against the storm's roar. No one spoke. The ocean calmed, its surface smoothing to glass, as if the island had never existed. Vincent Hale was among the survivors, his face pale, his empire reduced to nothing. He'd stayed for his secrets, and now they were buried in the deep, along with Stormhaven's ruins. The survivors' eyes lingered on the spot where Jade had stood, her final act ensuring their escape. She'd been a shadow among them, a maintenance worker, unnoticed by the elite in their glittering gowns. Yet she'd fought for them, her soldiers' instincts outwitting both the sea and Hale's greed. The towers drifted on, carried by currents toward the mainland. The air was heavy with salt and silence, the dawn breaking in soft pinks that belied the chaos. Jade's name wasn't spoken. She was a memory, fleeting as the wave that took her. Some wept, their tears mixing with the sea's spray. Others stared at the horizon, searching for a sign she'd survived. But the ocean kept its secrets, its depths a vault for the brave. Hale sat apart, his hands trembling, his gaze fixed on the water. He'd seen her too, standing tall, eyes on the dawn, unflinching as the wave came. Her sacrifice was a weight he couldn't shake, a debt he'd never repay. The tower's lights flickered, guiding them to safety, a testament to her work in the dark. Days later, the towers reached land, their passengers alive but changed. The world would call Stormhaven a tragedy, a geological anomaly, but the survivors knew better. They'd seen a woman defy the impossible, her hands coaxing life from forgotten machines. Jade's story was a whisper among them, too raw to share. She'd been no one to them, a worker in the shadows, but she'd given them everything. The sea had taken her, but her strength lingered, a ripple in the survivors' hearts. In the quiet of the towers, a child clutched a soaked scarf, dropped by Jade as she'd guided them to safety. It was all that remained, a fragile thread tying them to her. The ocean stretched endless before them, its surface calm but heavy with secrets. Jade's final stand was a beacon, unseen but felt, a courage that outlasted the storm. The survivors drifted on, their lives her legacy. Her name unspoken but carved in the silence. The sea remembered, and in its depths, Jade's story lived, a flicker of defiance, eternal and unbroken. A week after Stormhaven's fall, the survivors reached the mainland, their buoyant towers docking under a gray dawn. The world had already rewritten the story, calling it a geological anomaly, a sterile phrase that buried the truth. Governments issued statements, their reports vague, erasing the island from maps. Stormhaven was a ghost now, its steel and glass swallowed by the Pacific's depths. Jade Turner's name was absent from the headlines, her sacrifice unspoken. The survivors, bound by guilt or fear, kept her story close. Their voices hushed. They'd seen her on the hub's roof, a lone figure against the wave, but no one dared speak of her. She was a shadow, her courage too vast for their words. Vincent Hale stepped onto the shore, his face unreadable, his empire in ruins. The data he'd fought to save was gone, drowned with Stormhaven's servers. He moved among the survivors, silent, his tailored suit now crumpled. Days later, a package arrived at his office. A black box, unmarked, heavy with intent. Inside was a worn dog tag, its edges smoothed by time, and a note in sharp handwriting. "This time, I saved you. Next time, don't expect me back." Hale's hands shook as he read it, the words a blade in his conscience. He burned the note, but the tag stayed in his desk, a ghost he couldn't bury. The survivors scattered, returning to lives forever altered. A heiress clutched a damp scarf Jade had dropped, her fingers tracing its frayed edges. A worker, saved from the flooded districts, stared at the sea each night, searching for answers. They didn't speak of her, but her presence lingered, a quiet strength in their dreams, a ripple in their thoughts. The world moved on, its attention fleeting, but the survivors carried Jade's weight. Her sacrifice a silent bond. She'd been invisible to them in life, a maintenance worker among the elite, yet she'd given them everything. Governments sealed their files, dismissing inquiries with practiced ease. Stormhaven's collapse was a footnote, its secrets buried with the wreckage. The survivors' silence grew heavier, their gratitude unspoken. A child, saved on the towers, drew a figure in a sketchbook, a woman standing tall, water rising around her. Her parents didn't correct her, they knew the truth. Jade's story was too raw, too real, for public consumption. It lived in whispers, in glances shared among those who'd seen her final stand. Hale rebuilt his empire, his name untarnished by the official narrative. But the dog tag haunted him, a reminder of a debt unpaid. He saw her in his sleep, Jade on the roof, eyes fixed on the dawn, unflinching as the wave came. The survivors carried similar ghosts, their lives marked by her absence. The sea had taken her, but it hadn't erased her. Her courage was a current, flowing through those she'd saved, unseen but unbreakable. The mainland buzzed with new stories, Stormhaven fading from memory. Yet in quiet moments, the survivors felt her, a pulse in the wind, a whisper in the waves. Jade Turner needed no monument. Her legacy was their breath, their second chance. The ocean kept her story, its depths a vault for the brave. She'd vanished, but her ripple endured, a silent promise that one life, given freely, could shift the tide forever. Jade Turner's story reveals a profound truth. True heroism thrives in silence, unshackled by the need for recognition. She was no icon, just a maintenance worker with a soldier's resolve, yet she saved dozens by coaxing life from Stormhaven's forgotten machines. Her sacrifice, swallowed by the sea, left no mark in the world's gaze. But it reshaped lives. Jade teaches us that courage doesn't demand applause. It lives in the choice to act when others hesitate, to stand firm against overwhelming odds, even if no one will ever know. Her life was a ripple, quiet but transformative, showing that one selfless act can alter destinies without leaving a trace. This truth challenges us to see the unsung heroes around us, those who act not for glory but for duty. The nurse working through the night, the volunteer cleaning a ravaged park, the friend who listens when hope fades. These are Jade's kin. Her story asks, will you act when your moment comes, even if it's unseen? Courage, she shows, is not in the spotlight but in the heart that moves despite fear, unnoticed yet vital. Let Jade's tale stir you to honor this quiet courage. Share her story with those around you, friends, family, colleagues, and spark a conversation about the power of selfless acts. Tell them of Jade, who faced the sea and a man's greed to save strangers, her name lost, but her impact eternal. Discuss what her choice means. That one person, in one moment, can shift the tide. Ask others to share their own stories of silent heroes, those who've changed lives without seeking praise. Your voice can amplify this truth. Talk about Jade at a gathering, over coffee, or in a quiet moment with someone you trust. Ask, who have you seen act with courage, unnoticed? Share their stories, and let Jade's ripple grow. Comment on what silent courage means to you. Write it in a journal, speak it to a friend, or reflect in a group. Each word you share is a nod to those who act without fanfare, a way to keep their light alive. Jade's legacy endures in the survivor's breath, in the child's sketch of a woman against the wave, in the dog tag that haunts Vincent Hale. It lives in you if you choose to act. Don't wait for recognition. Be the one who moves, who mends, who saves, even if the world looks away. Her story is a call to see courage in its purest form, quiet, steadfast, selfless. Share it, discuss it, and let it inspire you to act when your storm comes. Take this moment to reflect. Who in your life has shown silent courage? Share their story with someone today and tell them about Jade. Ask them to share their own examples, to comment on what these acts mean. Let these conversations build a chain of recognition, honoring those who act without reward. Jade's ripple began with one choice. Yours can too. Speak, share, and keep the truth of silent courage alive, proving that one act, however small, can defy even the mightiest storm.